This is a video lesson for Module 5, Lesson 28. The Lesson 28 learning target is I can solve word problems with line plots. So today's lesson is going to be just a quick tutorial about how to set up and interpret line plots. And so we're going to get started with just one problem today. That's all we have in today's lesson. And this problem asks us to interpret this set of data over here. And we are going to be looking at a group of children measured the lengths of their shoes, and the measurements are shown in the table, and we're going to make a line plot to display the data. So you see we have the students right here and the lengths of the shoes right here. So down below I've already created the start of my line plot. I'm actually going to need to zoom out here to make a little more room. And so when I'm making my line plot, the first thing I want to do is I want to look to see what is the smallest value in my data set. So I'm scanning through all the data on the side here, and I'm looking through and I see that it looks like 7 1/2 is the smallest data point in this data set. So I know that the bottom of my line plot needs to be at least 7 1/2, so I'm going to go ahead and start the bottom of my line plot at 7. Then I need to figure out what's the highest value on my data set. So once again, I'm scanning through my data set, and it looks like 8 3/4 is my largest. So I need my data set to, or my line plot, to at least include 8 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead and put 9 as my highest value, because I know that will include 8 3/4. So that means 8 holes is going to be right in the middle of my line plot here. And so next I need to figure out how am I going to partition my number line. So I look at the fractions of these mixed numbers and I see I have halves and I have fourths. So I know I can make halves out of fourths, so I'm going to partition this number line into fourths so that I can input every single part, or every single data set will have a specific point on the number line here. So just recapping what I've done so far, I've looked at my data set, I found the smallest value to determine what my smallest value on my number line should be, found the largest value to determine what the largest value on my number line should be, then I looked at the fractions in the number line to see how I should partition my number line, and I partitioned it into fourths. So my next step is to plot all the data points on the number line. So I'm going to be plotting the length of the shoes on the number line. And so I'm going to start at the top here with Colin's data and work my way all the way down to Mary's. And for each set of data that I plot on the number line, I'm going to put an X above the number line. So for Colin, he's at 8 1/2. And so I'm going to put an X above the number line to represent one person being at 8 1/2. So moving my way down, I'm just going to plot the next person's here. Then down to Ben, he's at 7 1/2. Then Martha, she's at 7 3/4, just like Dickon up here. So I can put another X right above it. Then Lilius is at 8, so I can put an X above that. Susan at 8 1/2, so I put an X above the previous X. Francis at 7 3/4, I can put another X above that. And then Mary at 8 3/4, and so I can put an X above that. So that's pretty much how we plot our number line, or our line plot. And what we can do now is, now that we have all this data that we had in this chart plotted on this number line, we can answer all sorts of different questions about it. So if they asked what's the most common length of shoe, we can clearly see that since this point right here has 3 different people who have 7 3/4, that 7 3/4 is the most common. If we want to know what is the smallest length of shoe, we can see that 7 1/2 inches is the smallest. If we want to see what is the largest or longest length of shoe, we can clearly see that 8 3/4 is the largest. So we can answer all sorts of questions once we've plotted all this data on the line plot. So this should help you out with the work today for Lesson 28. And you should be able to plot and answer questions about a specific data set. But if you get stuck or confused about how to plot data on a line plot, you can always come back and rewatch any parts of the video that you need. So good luck with today's problem set, and thanks for watching.